I'm not sure how this one is gonna go. I had no plan of even shooting a video today. I was just going through my gear room and doing some decluttering and organizing my backpacking gear, and it kind of got me thinking, I've never really done a video on my all-time favorite gear. So that's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna talk about my 5 favorite pieces of backpacking gear that I've ever had. And we're just gonna jump right into it, and we're gonna start with this guy here. This is the Summit pack from a company called Easy Dog. This is my boy Remy's pack, and this was the first backpack I ever picked up for my dog when it came to hiking and backpacking. I've had this pack for about 5 years now. And when I first got Remy, I had dreams of taking him out on backpacking trips and hiking trips, but I didn't really know how it was all gonna work. I had no clue what I was doing, but I had seen so many people out there on trail hiking with their dogs, and I thought it looked like the funnest thing in the world. So when I got my dog Remy, I decided he was gonna get into hiking and backpacking with me. But like I said, I really had no idea what I was doing, and there wasn't really a ton of information out there on backpacking with dogs and hiking with dogs. The only dog gear I had ever really seen was the rough wear gear. And at the time, I just wasn't really ready to drop over $100 on a backpack for my dog when I didn't even know if backpacking with my dog was something I was gonna like. So I decided to go with this guy here. I picked up the Summit pack from a company called Easy Dog, like I said. Super simple design, just 2 saddlebags on either side. It's got a couple little extra pockets on it. It's got your standard little leash clip on the top, and obviously covered in white hair. Remy's a white shepherd, so he sheds all over everything. I fondly remember the day that this showed up at my house and taking Remy out to the dog park and throwing his pack on and filling it up with some food and, you know, his little water bottles and that kind of stuff. And I remember the absolute look of joy on his face marching down the trail with his backpack on. You guys may not see Remy a ton on the channel. He does have some health issues and he can't necessarily handle the longer backpacking trips anymore. So I do try and plan one trip every summer where I can take Remy out, and I usually leave Wanda at home. And to me, those trips are a ton of fun. I absolutely love getting that big goofy white guy out on trail with me. But to me, this pack represents where I got started in my venture with hiking and backpacking with my dogs. And I have a ton of sentimental connection with this pack. I absolutely freaking love this piece of gear. Another piece of gear that has a ton of sentimental value to me, and a piece of gear that I still use and is actually the oldest piece of gear that I own, is this guy here. This is my MSR Whisper Light. I bought this stove here when I was 19 years old, and I moved away from using my original stove, which was this old boxy style Swedish made stove. I don't even remember the brand name of it, but it's very similar to those old boxy Coleman stoves that have the separate fuel tank and a little pump on it. A little bit about myself, I'm a journeyman plumber, and I got started in plumbing when I was 19 years old. And one of the very first paychecks that I got when I was an apprentice plumber, I decided to go and spoil myself. I picked myself up an MSR Whisper Light. This was my go-to stove for years for summer and winter backpacking trips. Currently, this is just my winter backpacking stove. I can't justify carrying the weight of this on a summer backpacking trip, but for a winter backpacking trip, you absolutely cannot go wrong with a liquid fueled stove. And there's a reason why the Whisper Light design has remained the same ever since MSR came out with it. And for a stove that I've had for nearly 16 years, the only issue I've ever had with my Whisper Light stove is a leaky O-ring inside the pump. And I have since changed out to the newer pump design that MSR came out with a couple years ago. Like I mentioned, I was having some issues with the O-ring continually leaking. When you have these liquid fueled stoves, every year you're supposed to do a little bit of maintenance on them, and usually your O-rings don't wear out. But I found every single year the O-ring on the inside of the pump here was failing on me. And I got in touch with MSR to see if they had an upgraded O-ring or something better that I could use. And they sent me a little conversion kit so I could use the newer pump style with my original Whisper Light. But like I said, that's the only issue I've ever had with this stove. This stove is an absolute workhorse. I've used this stove down to negative 35 degrees Celsius. No issues whatsoever. Fires up every single time. Works like a dream. I have no intention of ever changing out this stove. I absolutely freaking love it. It's got a ton of sentimental value to me. And it's just, like I said, an absolute workhorse. I absolutely freaking love my MSR Whisper Light. 2 pieces down, 3 more to go. The next 3 pieces of gear we're gonna talk about are a little bit more modern backpacking gear. And the last piece of gear we're gonna talk about is actually my absolute favorite piece of backpacking gear that I've ever bought. But jumping into some of the more modern gear that has made its way into my all-time favorite list of favorite pieces of backpacking gear, this guy here, this is my Ribs front pack. Now, I get asked all the time about my Ribs front pack. People see it in my trip videos and ask me where I got it and where they can pick one up. And unfortunately, these aren't made anymore. I do believe the company actually went under. For me, the reason that I use the Ribs front pack is I've never actually owned a backpack that has hip belt pockets. For years and years, I was an Arc'teryx Bora user, and moving from the Bora, I went to an Osprey Exos pack, the newer style that doesn't have hip belt pockets. And prior to getting the ribs pack, I was just using a camera bag and I was just clipping it to the shoulder straps of my backpack and letting it hang down front. And that worked great for me for years, but when I saw Syntax 77 using the ribs front pack, I thought that was the coolest little front pack and figured, you know what, I want to pick one of those up and try it out. And once I picked it up, it found a permanent place in my backpacking gear loadout. I use this pack all the time, backpacking trips, day trips. I love that it utilizes its own standalone suspension system. So even when I'm not wearing my backpack, I can still throw my ribs front pack on and utilize the pockets on this. I do wear this quite a bit around camp if I'm walking around and I want to do some filming. I carry my camera gear on one side, and on the other side of my front pack, I carry snacks and my compass and maps. Essentially just any gear that I want to have handy. Between the two compartments, this guy holds about 8 to 9 liters of gear. And when you're wearing it, it does not interfere with the chest strap of your pack or your waist belt whatsoever. It's also got a couple little smaller pockets on the front, which are super handy. I've always got a stash of Matty Outdoor stickers and cards on myself when I'm out on trail. So if you guys ever bump into me out on trail, come over, say hi, ask me for a sticker. I love bumping into you guys and I love chatting with you guys when I meet you guys out on trail. The next piece of gear we're gonna talk about is the piece of backpacking gear I probably use the most, and I use it not just for backpacking trips. We're talking about my Mountain Hardwear Ghost Whisperer. Now, prior to picking up a Ghost Whisperer, I was just using a little lightweight Eddie Bauer down puffy jacket, and my Eddie Bauer down puffy weighed about 13 ounces. And going to the Ghost Whisperer, this guy weighs 7 ounces, and I do believe it is still the lightest weight down puffy jacket that you can find on the market. And like I said, this is not just a piece of backpacking gear for me. This is my go-to jacket in the spring and fall, and I use this as a supplemental layer on the colder days in the wintertime. A Ghost Whisperer is always in my front closet. Like I said, I use it all the freaking time. Now, if there's one drawback to the Ghost Whisperer, it's the price. These guys cost about $400 Canadian. But I was extremely fortunate when I picked up my Ghost Whisperer. I didn't spend anywhere near $400 Canadian when I got it. I actually got this jacket on a local buy and sell group off of Facebook, and I saw a Mountain Hardwear Ghost Whisperer posted for 50 bucks. That's right, 50. So I messaged the guy and met up with him later that day, and when we met up, he pulls out a brand new with tags Mountain Hardwear Ghost Whisperer, and I was absolutely blown away. The story behind it was he got this jacket as a gift, and it just simply didn't fit him, and I don't think he actually knew what he was selling. So threw it up on the marketplace for 50 bucks, jumped on it right away, scored myself a piece of gear that I had personally wanted for the longest time. But like I said, it was tough to justify the $400 price tag on this jacket. But after owning one, when this jacket does eventually give out and just has its last day, I 100% will be picking up another one. I totally think they are worth the $400 price tag attached to them. I absolutely freaking love my Ghost Whisperer jacket. That's why it is one of my absolute favorite pieces of gear. Now, as is customary, we always save the best for last, right? But before we get to my absolute favorite piece of backpacking gear, let me know in the comments down below, what is your favorite piece of backpacking gear? Do you want to know mine? It's this orange stuff sack. Obviously, I'm just joking. It's not the orange stuff sack. It's what's inside the orange stuff sack. And for those of you guys and gals who have watched the channel for a bit, you probably already know this is my Cave Creek Pet Palace. And if you don't know what the Pet Palace is, the Cave Creek Pet Palace is a fully integrated bug net with bathtub floor that goes over top of your 11-foot hammock and drapes down to the ground with bug netting, and then has a fully sealed bathtub floor. This is designed to keep your dog nice and dry and sealed away from bugs when you're out on a backpacking trip. This piece of gear here has absolutely revolutionized backpacking trips for me. Over the last couple of years, I have become an avid hammock camper, and I cannot overstate how much sleeping in a hammock has changed backpacking trips for me. But the biggest drawback when I first got into hammock camping was I wasn't really sure how hammock camping was gonna work with taking my dogs out on backpacking trips. Then I found this guy. Like I said, this piece of gear here has revolutionized backpacking trips for me. This goes out on nearly every backpacking trip with me in the summer, in the spring and fall. Hands down, my favorite piece of backpacking gear I've ever had. Definitely the most revolutionary piece of backpacking gear I've ever added to my backpacking gear loadout. I get the insane high quality sleep that I get from sleeping in my hammock. Plus I get the luxury and benefit of taking my dogs out with me on backpacking trips. Just amazing piece of gear. I freaking love my Pet Palace. As we finish up this video talking about a piece of hammock camping gear, if you guys are interested in hammocks and any kind of the gear associated with backpacking with a hammock, I've got a playlist over here of all the different hammock videos that I've done. So when you guys are done watching this one, head on over there, find a video in that playlist. As always, guys, I'm Matty. Thank you guys so dang much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.